So the reason I was looking at it was because, because a lot of people struggle with their sun gate and understanding it, even though it's like their greatest expression, because a lot of times you're just so close to it, you don't see it.
Right.
And it's usually if you are struggling with the more gift expression of your sun gate is looking at, well, am I supporting myself through my earth gate to help shine that light? Human Design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, Human Design Specialist.
And I'm Haley, the Human Design newbie. Listen in as we explore how leaning into your authentic self is your ultimate path to success. Welcome to the Human Design Hive podcast. Let's get into it.
Well, hello there, Haley. How are you doing?
Hi, good.
It is good. It's good to see you. I feel like we're almost matching today. We're kind of like got our...
We're in the same scheme.
We're in the same scheme. We're schemers.
Scheme.
I also noticed I was doing some video editing and like you have your picture behind you and I have mine behind me. When I put a side by side, sometimes it's like in some of those promotional videos or whatever for right next to each other, it looks a little weird. What can we say? We're kind of alike in certain ways.
Yeah.
So we just came off. Well, it's actually been a week now. We've been past our holiday weekend here in the States, Memorial Weekend, which we scattered your grandparents' ashes on the Sunday, went out on the sailboat with my brother-in-law, your uncle, has a sailboat, which I've had my mother's ashes, some of them. And we kind of did that several years ago in Colorado.
Yeah.
Scattered her ashes. But they had both parents because your grandparents, Richard's parents, died within about a year of each other, roughly, I would say.
Yeah,
it's been about a year since his dad died.
Yeah.
But so they've just all been waiting, got all the siblings together. And it was really interesting because we took them out on the boat and off the back of the swim platform, your dad and your Uncle Steve released them at the same time. And it was really cool to see them like kind of travel together in the water as the boat went away from it. And then they kind of merged together. It was kind of cool. And so that was nice. And then we had your Uncle Steve on Monday had arranged they have in his community a brick laying ceremony for veterans that have passed or served, which your grandfather did. And he was in the service when he was younger, when he married your grandmother. And so it was nice. Several community members had memorial bricks and there was a school choir that sang and all this stuff. It was quite a big event. And then we had some delicious food afterwards at Steve's house. Now, I love food, but after this ceremony, since it's in a 55 plus community, of course they're going to eat right away lunch and it's like 11. But we already knew that there was food at Steve's house that was going to be ready at like 1:30. They all ate anyhow. I'm like, how can you guys all eat? They were eating like hot dogs and hamburgers and chips and cookies. And I just had what did I have? I had a bag of chips, like a little snack bag of chips and a drink, I think. But I was like, how can you guys just eat? Because, our family, that side of the family, there's food, and then there's food before the food,
and
appetizers
then there's dessert
and stuff
right after.
Yeah, because I was the one that I was asked to bring like dips and chips for appetizers. So I was like, wait a minute, you want me to eat a whole meal, then have appetizers, then eat another whole meal within like 3 hours of each other? Can't do it. But sorry, that was. I don't know why that's relevant. It's just those silly things. But
sometimes you just gotta get things off your chest.
I know, and I was the only one not eating. I was like, okay. So what'd you do?
Let's see. Memorial Weekend, I think Presley went for a long run, and I started the run with him. I did like 4 miles. I walked most of it. And then we met our friends for lunch to Manitou
Mhm.
Brewing. It was a gorgeous day. It was
Walking
gorgeous.
4 miles is no joke either.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
There was
especially
some
wherever
bird.
you're running.
Yeah.
Where'd you go? What brewery?
Manitou Brewing.
Mm, nice.
Yes. I got
Good food.
nachos.
I love those nachos.
Yeah. They are good nachos. And then our pool at our apartment also opened Memorial Weekend. And
Mhm.
I think it opened Friday. And this was
And it didn't
Saturday.
snow?
No, no snow. But it opened Friday, I think. And then this was Saturday. We were doing all our stuff. And I wanted to go to the pool afterwards because it was so nice. But
Mhm.
no, they had to shut it down because some asshole took glass into the pool area and broke it. So they had to completely shut down the pool area for like almost a week and drain the
A
pool.
week?
Yes, they had to completely drain the pool and clean it out and everything.
Somebody's always got to ruin the party.
Yeah. Like everyone knows that. You're not supposed
They
to
should
bring
put their
glass.
picture up on the community bulletin
Oh
board.
God.
If you see this person,
Shame.
thank them
Shame.
for ruining the weekend.
Yeah.
Shame. That's right. Ring the bell.
That made me think of something. So Ted Lasso, the woman that plays Hannah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's her name.
Yes, yes.
She was the bell ringer in Game of Thrones. I just learned that
Yes.
like the other day.
I know.
I did
She was
not know
scary
that.
in Game of Thrones,
She
wasn't she?
was.
You didn't like her at all. Nobody
No.
did. You weren't supposed to. I mean, it's pretty bad when there's two people in a scene and one of them is Cersei. What's her name? Cersei?
Cersei. Yeah. One of them Cersei.
And you're
one of them's-
sympathetic to Cersei.
I know.
It's like, wow, that's a really hated character.
Yeah.
That is so true. Yeah, that woman's awesome. What'd you say her name was? Do you remember? I know her name
No.
in Ted Lasso is Rebecca.
Yeah. I think Hannah Waddingham is her
Oh, yes, you're
actual name. Yeah.
You are correct.
She's great. I love her.
She's beautiful. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, Ted Lasso. Great show.
Yes.
So, well, we've done the catch up.
Yeah. So what are we talking about today?
Well, as we move into today's topic, I was struck with a little inspiration. You know, we've talked about, we do talk about the gates a lot, obviously. We do the monthly transits and we've talked about the Incarnation Cross. And so this sort of relates, well, it does relate to Incarnation Cross, but it's not limited to Incarnation Cross. But in the context of today's conversation, it's really going to be looking at that relationship between the Sun and Earth gates. So there's something that in the Gene Keys, he calls programming partners, and he's talking about the two Gene Keys, which I think when I did the Gene Keys episode, and maybe I did it by myself. I don't know if you...
No, I was there.
Felt alone.
I probably said, yeah.
Well, the Gene Keys work is by Richard Rudd, and he takes a different approach to these gates archetypes of the hexagrams. And it's a lot different. It's very deep, contemplative work, but it also is a very helpful companion to just the traditional human design gate work. And so a lot of people in the community blend the two a lot. I do, because it really helps with identifying shadow patterns and knowing what they are and how they can kind of play out in different ways. And so when we're looking at the sun and those earth placements, they always say in human design that your earth placement, that energy, that gate there, is what grounds you, right? You've heard that.
Kind of makes sense. I get it.
Yeah. But then again, also, it's like, but what does that mean, grounding? And how do those two actually play together? And so obviously, I've been looking at my chart for a long time now. And it's through that gene key work that I really started to get an understanding of what the energies of these gates were, because it does tap so well into kind of what the lower frequency, shadow frequency, which is, it's not a bad thing. It's just how you know kind of if you're off course or if you're not stepping into your light or your brilliance or whatever, your gifts. And so I started thinking about that again this week. And was like, oh yeah, he talks about these programming partners. Because if you also look at the mandala, the human design
Hmm.
mandala, wherever your sun is, your sun gate, the direct opposite is the earth gate.
Right.
And so we know that with Incarnation Cross, that's how we have the set number of Incarnation Crosses, because they're going to be always linked together, those sun
Yeah.
and
There's only
earth.
so many options.
That's right. And so basically, Richard Rudd calls them programming partners. And so these are these gates or keys that are like bonded together. They're almost like mirror opposites, but they also have this, there's 32 pairs, obviously, because there's 64 gates,
Hmm.
but they create this feedback loop between each other
Mm.
that kind of at every level of frequency, whether it's a low frequency or a high frequency. It's funny because they say like they're mirror opposites, but that in itself, if I wanted to break that down, they align, but they're also at opposites. I think in the opposite meaning they're opposite each other directionally, like you can see it, but they are like mirrors of each other. There's themes there that are really linked, especially when you look, like we'll look at yours in a little bit, how some of them are so linked it's kind of hard to even really suss apart. Like there's so many similarities there. So the reason I was looking at it was because, because a lot of people struggle with their sun gate and understanding it, even though it's like their greatest expression, because a lot of
Hmm.
times you're just so close to it, you don't see it.
Right.
And it's usually if you are struggling with the more gift expression of your sun gate, is looking at, well, am I supporting myself through my earth gate to help shine that light? Because they say that that earth gate is what grounds you, so that it gives you the energy to shine brighter. Does that make sense so far?
Hmm.
Okay. So like I said, it creates these feedback loops, especially at the lower frequency. It creates certain patterns in our behavior. It creates emotional
Hmm.
patterns, mental, behavioral patterns, I should say, that kind of keep reinforcing each other. So it's kind of hard to get out of that loop sometimes. So you do have to bring a certain level of awareness to
Do
it.
you do you think with those partners you could have one gate in a shadow expression and one in a gift expression like at the same time?
I mean, it's a good question because like you said, there's like this dance between them, and a lot of times not really, because if you're struggling in, let's say, just like your sun expression,
Hmm.
that means probably your earth expression is also in a lower frequency. Because if you were living out of your gift frequency in your earth, it would just naturally come through your sun expression, because it's what helps support that sun expression, right?
Hmm.
So if you're living in a more shadow side, which we can get into the details of it here, it'll be easier to understand if we look at
Hmm.
certain gates. Then you can see it's almost impossible to be living at the higher frequency if
I
this was
see.
a low.
The visual that comes to mind for me is the earth is like the tree trunk, like it's the base of the tree, and then the sun is
Hmm.
the leaves and the flowers. Like that's not going to
Hmm.
happen without the trunk.
Yeah, you got to have that foundation, that grounding, so to
Oh.
speak. And so, but the good thing is that even if you're slipping into those, awareness of these patterns, these behaviors, can shine that light to help you transform it. You can ask
Hmm.
yourself certain things. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And just being aware of it, because that's the difference with the gene keys and the human design. Because traditional human design is like cut and dry. Here it is,
Hmm.
right? Ra would always say, there's no choice. This is just who you are. He wasn't very transformational, he was just very like, this is it. And at that point, that's all there was. And Richard
Hmm.
Rudd, who wrote the Gene Keys, studied with Ra. He has deep understanding of human design, but he also saw, like a lot of people who, as this system evolves, sees that there's gaps, there's holes, there's
Hmm.
this was a foundation, this was beginning, because Ra was a 5-1 manifester. He was foundational. He was showing people the solutions, but he wasn't the one to enact the solution because he's a manifestor, he's a line 5. He had all the information, but not all the implementation. So I think that's why, as the years have gone by, more and more people have taken this information and done things with it, even though there's still people that believe that Ra's download is the only source and we need to follow it. But that seems very limiting to me and not expansive at all, because it's a good foundation, but what are you gonna do with it? And so with the gene keys,
people are gonna see it different all the time.
And gene keys are I mean, they're deep. They're hard to read sometimes because it is one of those things that reminds me of like when I read, when I try to read text of the Course in Miracles, not like the workbook, but the text. I feel like there are things like happening at a level you don't understand out of your awareness, like more energetically as you read and as you contemplate, that it needs time to marinate and sit, and then you can revisit it and go back. There's no active doing in contemplation. It's just contemplation. But I have found that when I revisit it and look at it again, a lot of times you'll gather something new, you'll see a new pattern or whatever. So this is where I ended up today. It was this new pattern, which could be old news to a lot of people, but to me, I'm like, oh, I love it when I see a new thing. So, I mean, if you look at, I mean, it's going to be easiest for me to describe my own gates, but if you just think about programming partners, I mean, even where it starts in gate 1, its programming partner is gate 2, because we know that the 1 we've talked about before is the most yang energy, the sun in it, like the male energy of the foundation of everything. These are human archetypes. So it's that individual, very much outward energy. And the 2 is called the receptive. It's very much that inward energy, allowing. And so those 2 are programming partners. If you have a sun in gate 1, you're going to have your earth in gate 2 and vice versa. And so there's 1 is the individual, the creative, it's the creative spark. It's in the G center, reaching to the throat. So it is that individual spark for creating, for doing, for manifesting. But it's also gate 2 being the receptive and allowing so it's like there's a lot in gate 2 that is about feeling supported and understanding you can go your own direction because you are supported, you are taken care of. And that supports that energy of individual creativity and bringing something new forward. On the reverse of that, if your sun is in gate 2, your earth is in gate 1. If you're not being your creative self, if you're not bringing through new and fresh ideas and acting on those and what it is you individually contribute to the world, it is going to be harder to shine that light of knowing the direction to go, knowing you are supported, all these things. They create this dance because there's always this dance between the masculine and the feminine energy. So that's the overall question so far.
Not a question, but a comment that's like only very slightly related.
Okay, go for it.
Did you watch The 3 Body Problem on Netflix? They talked about the I Ching in there.
Oh, I forget where they talked about it.
It was like one of the first couple episodes when they're like in the game and he's like trying to predict the sun and he lays out all these sticks on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I know what that is.
I know what that is now. Yeah, when they would use it for divination and whatnot, for sure. Yeah. So, some of the, so let's say, so if you're looking at the strengths and the shadows here, some of the shadows in that gate 1 are feeling that you don't have something to contribute. You may have some limiting beliefs. You can be a little bit self-destructive. They say that gate 1 can have a lot of depressive energy in it because you're like dimming your light. You're not allowing yourself to express. And so gate 2 in the shadow is that more like feeling lethargic or lost, because 2 is a directional energy. And so
Mm.
if you are in this state, say in the gate 1, as your sun gate, what you could look at is, am I feeling supported? Am I overthinking? Am I overdoing? Am I using my mind instead of allowing the universe to direct me in what feels good to me? Because gate 2 has the connection to the 14 through the sacral. It is the direction of the self. It directs.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're like trying to force thing, or you're feeling that you're not feeling supportive, it's going to be very hard to express yourself. So it's like you have to kind of relax into knowing that you're supported, reconnect to intuition in order to intuition to source. And I think, which is the key to a lot of things, obviously it's gate 2, it's the direction of the self, is allowing yourself to kind of relax and receive and just trust. So as I said, this is this is easier for me to explain because I've looked at myself and my gates for so long. So
Yeah.
mine is Sun in 14, Earth in gate 2. I mean, gate 8, sorry. Oh, and I will note one thing. It can get a little confusing because these partners, programming partners, they're always together, but they don't create channels, right? Some of them do. There are a couple of pairings that are programming partners
Uh-huh.
and channels. Like
Okay.
the 3420 is one of them. 4323 is another one. Those 2 are always together. I think it's 3740. Those are ones that are programming partners and channels. But what we're looking at here is just the programming partner for right now. If we get into the
Okay.
other ones, we can get into the other ones. I mean, I do have the 4323. I can speak to that. In case you haven't heard. So gate 14, and this is the possession in great measure. It's the themes around wealth and abundance. It's like you got the keys to the kingdom kind of thing. You got it all there because it's this pure sacral energy that is pointed towards what is good for the self, right? It's a responsive gate. If you're following what lights you up, using that sacral response of, oh, yes, I want to go that direction. If you were to keep following that response, it should lead you to what is really the theme here is work you love, doing work you love, creating money, not just for yourself, for everyone. There's a lot of goodness in this gate, right? But at the same time, if you have this gate, because they say if you have this gate, oh, you never have to work a day in your life because everything feels great. When you're always, money's coming in, things are great. Not my experience necessarily. And abundance in other ways, but actual dollars, not always. And so it's been a struggle throughout my life. And you have to question, like, what is that about? Because if you know, and this is the point of this whole thing, if you know what your like gift energy is supposed to be, what this higher expression is supposed to be, and you're not experiencing that, which if you look at human design long enough, you realize like, yeah, this stuff checks out. It shakes out. It resonates, right? So why am I not experiencing that? So I look at the shadow energies here of the 14 and the 8, because the 8 is about authentic self-expression, 100% being yourself. Like you can't be anyone else. So at the gift level, it's like, can I tap in it? Sure, whatever, maybe. But it was looking at the shadows of these 2 that really, really cast a light on what was happening. Because he uses keywords as well, just very simple words. And so the shadow for gate 14 is compromise. And the shadow for gate 8 is mediocrity. And when I read those, you'll feel called out. You're like, what is that? I am, but it really is. It's like if you are living in mediocrity, it means that you're trying to fit in the sense that you're not fully stepping into who you are. Like I wouldn't say I'm trying to fit in necessarily, but I'm also not 100% there. I think, all the time of truly standing out,
Yeah.
of attracting attention. That's not a comfortable place to be. I'm also a Scorpio. I don't want to attract attention. I want to observe all of you out there. But we often equate attracting attention with, you've got to be like, hey,
Yeah, you gotta be
because
loud and
because
a lot.
he says the gift of gating is style. And I'm like,
Oh.
I don't have any style. I don't know what that means. But what I do recognize is that authentic expression, being yourself. You can't be anyone else, because if you look at where gate 8 connects in the body graph, it connects to gate 1, which is creative self-expression. So it's that voice of the individual, of being yourself. And so and that is the key then, that stepping out of mediocrity, because when you are living a mediocre life, you're not being true to you just kind of lose your zest for life. It's like you feel like you can't ever align with what it is you want, what you're doing. The key is if I just would start to be who I am and what interests me, that then shifts the energy. Because as I'm in mediocrity, let's call it, I'm compromising. I'm compromising myself. I'm compromising what it is I really want to maybe do or say or be, because I'm fitting in with what society wants or thinks. Now, like I said, I don't necessarily 100% see myself as completely trying to fit in. I don't really want to be there. But like I said, I've never fully stepped, which I just feel like I am now in the past year or so, fully stepping into and saying, just starting this podcast and being like, well, people are going to hear it. And maybe I tell people now that I know I used to hide a lot of these things that I was interested in because it felt weird and I didn't really want to explain it or have to explain it. I just did what I wanted to do on my own. But now I know I have to kind of own it, that this is how I think and feel. And so when you're compromising, it's like you're not being true to yourself, right? And what you need, which is what gate 8 is trying to support. And that's what gate 8 needs as well, is for you to not compromise yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if I were to stop being mediocre, I would see, say that, just say it over and over again. I'm so mediocre. If I were to really step into that energy of being myself, what that then does is activates the energy in that gate 14 of, no, I have what it takes to do what it is I want to do or what I want to be. I'm competent at, I can handle it. I can handle it, right? I can do it. And the more I do it, the more comes my way. So that's my understanding of it. And
sense.
So I know you're curious.
Yes.
You have difficult ones.
Oh.
Not
Okay.
really. I only think it's more difficult because it's like so foreign to me because let's see, all the gates that are in your Incarnation Cross, I do not have. I have no experience of them.
Yeah.
And so
And 2 of them are in the head that you have nothing about.
no activations. No, none. So I have no flavor there. But that's okay. We can look at our reference materials and we can suss this out.
Yes.
So your Sun and Earth gates on the personality side, which we're going to do both of yours because I feel like it's a really good, you can see how they kind of play off each other, especially on your unconscious side. But on the conscious side, so for your Sun gate, it's gate 63, gate of doubt. Earth and gate 64, confusion. And what's interesting is these traditional human design names are also in the gene keys what he refers to as their shadows, is doubt and confusion.
Lovely.
And they are just inextricably linked because it's this push pull between and a not push pull, but also a synergy between logic and imagination because
Mm-hmm.
they're also those two different streams. They start the logic circuit and the abstract circuit of imagination. So
Mm-hmm.
your sun gate, that shadow of doubt, the gift is inquiry. Okay, so quite often when we talk about gate 63, it's always talking about the shadow side and the doubt
Mm-hmm.
because, quite as you just said, you always doubt yourself,
Yes.
which is the very what you shouldn't do, but is very common is self doubt because this is a start of the logic process, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
there has to be the inquiry there. And this inquiry is like a healthy skepticism. It's understanding that these are ideas, it's not truth. It's in the higher expression. It's questioning without a need for answers. It is creating the questions. What
Mm-hmm.
if? And those questions being in the logic circuitry are focused to the future. It's always trying to find safety in the present by looking to the future and trying to figure it all out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that resonate a
Maybe.
little bit? Yeah. And so it's really this inquiry is in that higher expression is about encouraging us to really embrace doubt, like I'm not sure if this is true. Is this true? I don't know if it's true, because that's how it's a catalyst for growth. It's the start of that scientific process we talk about all the time. You have to have doubt as to whether or not something is true, and then through the scientific process and logic is a process of testing
Mm-hmm.
those doubts and those ideas to see if they hold up, right?
Right.
And so, but as you said, it can lead to self-doubt because what happens is this overthinking. And that also creates confusion, right? Doubt and confusion just go hand in hand because the more you think about it, the more confused you get because the mind is not full of answers, it's only full of questions.
Yes.
You're like, so I'm doomed, right? Because I have all these doubts and confusion. What the hell?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, it's achieving this balance between seeking answers, but accepting that you never know everything and using the information that, so in your instance, the gate 64, that confusion comes from relying too heavily on logic, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
if we think about the energy that we talk about in 64, it's the abstract and it's about experience. It's
Mm-hmm.
about what did we learn, what happened, what can we take away, what can we do with this, blah blah blah. And that is also something that can't be rushed because it is right brain thinking. It is where you have to be patient and kind of allow the answers to unfold at their own time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also linked to, like I said, the gift here is imagination. So it's allowing this continuous flow of ideas that may be coming through to you, ideas, inspirations, and being more creative in your thinking about not trying to force an answer of understanding what something means, but just being like questioning, doubt, like, or inquiry. What could that be? What could that look like? And so you can see how these two aren't a solution to each other. They're kind of a mirror of each other. But if you lean into this more gift of imagination and imagining, not forcing an answer,
Mm-hmm.
then it can lessen the doubting and put you in more of a space of just like innocent inquiry. So it's this more playful and creative use of your mental energies. What do you think about that?
Definitely have to sit with it.
I know it's a lot. Well, you know what's also funny about these two gates is that like the way it lines up in the I Ching,
Mm-hmm.
63, 64, 63 is called after completion. 64 is called before completion.
I don't
Talk
like it.
about confusion and doubt.
I don't like it.
And as I tell you, I don't completely understand that myself yet. I keep going back to it and sitting with it. And if that makes me look like I don't know everything, I don't know everything. But this gates tell me I don't have to know everything. I'll understand it when it's ready to understand it. And so, really, for you, that would mean like when you really feeling yourself spiraling in this doubt or self
Mhm.
doubt, you need to look at, wait a minute, am I trying to force an answer? Am I being patient with the process? Maybe I should just allow myself, my time, my brain to just be creative, think about possibility and then answers or directions of which way to go will appear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I gotta feel like I've been stifled in my imagination. I don't
Yeah.
imagine a lot.
Well,
Well, because like anytime we've tried to do any like future planning,
mhm,
I think I don't allow the imagination part to come through.
mhm,
I just get stuck in the doubt, in the logic part of it. Like, how is
mhm,
it? That's never gonna work. I can't do that. It's never gonna happen. So I get like stuck there,
mhm.
and then I get upset.
Which I think is very common. I mean, obviously it's common. These are archetypes that are and themes that are present in all of us, just whether
Mhm.
it's more consistently. And especially in the manifestation process, which would be future thing, like what do we want to have come through,
Mhm.
is that trying to figure out how is the killer of progress and dreams and manifestation, which I get there. I'm there quite often,
Presley is there
you
a lot.
know.
He likes to know the tactical steps. What's happening? I'm like, oh, fucking no.
Yeah, and he can't. He's a generator. He's got to let it show up in front of him. And you can have intentions, you can have short-term goals, but it just is a matter of seeing what happens, which I know he
Mhm.
doesn't like that. But when they tell you when you're trying to manifest something or create something, is to just tap into the feeling of what you want, what you would like to have. And that is a really hard place to get to, especially even as you get later and later in life, because you've often created things you didn't want or things didn't work out. And we've all been conditioned as a collective to believe that effort and work and logic, because that's the whole era we've been in, is
Mhm.
controlled around mental awareness, which we're moving more into emotional awareness as a key for creating.
Mhm.
But mental logic, all that kind of awareness is what built our societies and our
Yeah.
cultures and structures. And so we are, as a species, on that tail end of relying on that, right?
Mhm.
And understanding that the more we know, the more we don't know.
Yeah.
So, really, for you, you're going to be in that loop of trying to get out of doubt and confusion. And so, just really being more playful with your thoughts and allowing them to wander. Allow your thoughts to wander.
Mhm.
You don't have to figure it out, it'll work out on its own. And that's why I want to look at your design side too, because you have your sun in gate 26 and your earth in gate 45, which we've been digging into because we just did the June gates. Coming up, we're in right now while we're recording, we're in gate 35 and it moves into 45 after this in a couple of days.
Ooh,
Um,
where is
and
45?
it's in the throat. It's a throat. It's your throat gate, the one throat gate you
Oh,
have.
I see it. I found it.
Yeah. So, we've definitely talked about the 45 for sure. It's in the throat center as being that king, queen energy, themes
Mhm.
of leadership and reaching towards the will center. And so the shadow there in that gate is about dominance. It's about hierarchies, and it's prioritizing your personal will over the whole. Because, like I said, it's pointing down towards the will center. That means it is the voice of the will center. And so there is much of I, but when we've talked about it, this is the kind of leadership that, yes, it holds the power and the resources, let's say, has the potential there, but it's using it for its own personal gain to dominate others. There's that not serving the whole, enriching yourself kind of thing there.
Yeah.
And so with the gate 26 then, which is also in the will center, reaching over to the spleen, the shadow there is pride. This is a gate that has a lot of different descriptions of it, but it kind of means the same thing.
Okay.
This is pride, ego-based, like it's the ego. The ego is not a bad thing. It's what individualizes us. This is what that will center is called. It's the ego center, the heart center. And the shadow there of pride is, again, also taking your individual will and using that willpower against the whole. Because we talked about how this is like the person who can, it's a natural salesman. They can bring you, there's manipulation in this gate, but it can be used for good, which is why in quantum, it's the gate of integrity. You've got to be in integrity, right? Because your voice, your will carries a lot of influence. Like you just have a natural way of swaying people to your way of doing things.
I do.
Yeah. It's an unconscious energy. You're not always aware that you're doing it, but that's why you have to be paying special attention to, am I manipulating this situation or setting the stage or whatever it is, selling them something that is not for their benefit, but just for mine. It is this, it's very present in the business world, this pride, this climbing to the top by pushing others down. That's that also same thing, the shadow of the 45, the dominance hierarchy, that kind of thing. This is that same kind of, you have to be in charge. It has to be what you want. You have to dominate other people, right? Whereas the gifts in the 45 is a synergy. It's a leadership where everybody has input, but you just help guide the input. And it's also the gift in the 26. He calls it artfulness, and that's ego, will, without self-judgment or fear manipulation. It's, like I said, manipulating things in a good way, like selling an idea. Like Richard Rudd equates, just, he calls it artfulness, but if you just look at art in a way, art itself, artistic expression, is a sort of manipulation.
Yeah.
It is changing the way people see things, a perspective, but it does it in a beautiful way. It's not from a way of forcing. It's a way of just being, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so if you looked at all these together and how they play together, I find that it helps in this instance, really, your Incarnation Cross is the cross, left angle cross, dominion. You do carry this very influential energy, and in the wrong hands or in the wrong mindset could still be very influential, but also, I feel like your life path, where you're here to influence others, is to show responsible leadership, collective collaboration, synergy, like helping to promote ideas that are innovative, new, or just something, because those head gates, I mean, it's coming through you. That's help, and you're defined there. So that is meant to influence others, balanced with this energy of responsible leadership that helps everybody, and not just yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What that's going to be like, we don't know. You're a line 6. Who knows? You're exuding that energy anyhow. You, like we've said before, you do give off a certain leadership energy that doesn't feel threatening.
Yeah. I definitely don't feel that I am in any shadow on my unconscious side.
No. I don't think so. And being a projector, with an undefined throat as well. It's like when you are called into a lot of these leadership roles, you're kind of helping bring people out of that doubt and confusion, because a projector is able to see the whole picture, and your line 6, to see what needs to be put in place or how it needs to be organized, or you could maybe see things from a different angle that other people aren't seeing, which can help bring them out of that doubt and confusion, and it benefits the whole kind of thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound nice?
It does.
Because it kind of sounds like where and as a projector, that's probably where you have found that successful feeling, is in that instance of where you're able to contribute in that way.
Yeah.
So just another example, like I told you earlier, the gate, which I have the most experience with. Well, there's two real quick. I'll try to be real quick. The 4323,
Yes.
programming partners, also channel. And the 43 is insight, 23 is assimilation. And so it is knowingness, it's individual knowingness. And also because but also it is incarnation crosses in the people around us, right? Me, you too. I mean, you're not here now, but because it's Ian's and it's also Lakeland's. And what's interesting is the different placements, because your brother, 23, is his sun, 43 is his earth.
Oh, shit.
So 23, assimilation, making things simple for people to understand. It's taking those complex ideas that are coming through that are new and not always easy to understand, and finding language to it so you can express it. And so in order for him to really shine that 23 energy, he has to allow the innovative ideas to come through, but also to understand that it has to be called out of him. It is not something that he's supposed to just tell everybody.
Start spewing.
Yeah, they might not understand him, which could be frustrating to him, because he's, he has the means to help people understand, but if they didn't ask for it, they're not going to understand him. And let me tell you, that boy, he does have a gift for it. And this just happened the other night. We were having dinner and your Aunt Linda was over. And how did I know what we were talking about. We were talking about how when there's too much of something, sometimes it like has the inverse effect. Because we were talking about the effect of like caffeine on Lakeland. In the morning, it's okay. Her energy's low. But like if she does it later in the day, it like hardwires her. Or if you have a toddler that goes too long without sleep, instead of they're tired.
And then they're just crazy.
Jacked up, right? And he's like, he just says, integer overflow. Integer overflow? Yeah, I think that's what he called it. It's integer overflow. And I'm like, what's that?
What?
It's a math coding term that he learned, and he starts trying to explain it, what it means, that basically you can only have so many integers of a number, and then you get to a certain point and it's got to reset to 0. I'm like, what? I don't understand that. So he was just offering it and I didn't understand it. But then I said, okay, explain that again. Tell me again. And he tried to explain it again and I didn't get it. And he's like, I think I just need to draw this out for you. And I said, perfect. So he was showing me. This is like
in the middle of dinner?
That was before dinner. No, it was after dinner. Sorry. He just showed me like a set of 4 zeros, and so it was the language of zeros and ones, which is coding, and how they represent numbers, bits of information. And he was only showing me 4 bits, but he made it so that I could see the pattern of what it was, a code. That's what I did. I was like, I was getting excited once I understood. I'm like, oh, I get it. It's a code. He's like, yeah, it's coding. Whereas a computer that does 64 bits, that means it has 64 zeros that represents, so it's something like 24 million or billion combinations of numbers that computer can compute. That's all this stuff. But I was aware of it as I was talking to him. I'm like, this is his zone of genius, is that he is able to take something very complicated and explain it to some idiot like me, who's terrible at math. and doesn't like to see herself in that light as being like someone who, because it does hurt my brain a little bit, but he made it simple for me.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, if he's making things too complicated, he can't get that light of simplicity through, and vice versa. If someone was, if their light is bringing these innovative solutions through, or these new ideas and everything, if they're not, taking the time for themselves to understand and assimilate and see how they can make it simple, it's going to be very hard to bring that through, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Do you think we explained this concept?
I think so.
Keep going. But anyway, so the point of this being is that this is present in every gate, right? It's not just your incarnation cross. So maybe if you don't already have the gene keys or some other kind of text resource material that helps you dig into what these things are. I mean, I go back and forth between at least 3, 4, 5 sources all the time of seeing what this one says, what that one says, trying to make sense of it all.
Yeah. What people don't see is right to your side, there's like a stack of so many books.
Stacks and stacks. And on my computer that you can't see, the books on my computer. But so if there are other placements in your chart that you don't quite understand how the energy works, well, okay, what is the programming partner of that? You could look at it on a wheel, or you could just, Google
So every gate
programming
does
partners.
have a partner.
Yeah, because it's a wheel. There's always going to be something directly opposite of it on the wheel. Like right now, we're in gate 35. The opposite of that is 5, which 5 is about patience and consistency. Gate 35 that we're in now is about new experiences and trying things for the experience. And it's like they both carry these themes of, if you're too stuck, I think, in your patterns and your consistency, your normal way of doing things, you're not really opening yourself up to growth, because you need now and then to have something kind of change those patterns, because ultimately everything does change throughout nature. There's certain seasons for things. You have to try things. Likewise, if you're always jumping into every new adventure just for the sake of you're bored or whatever, you're impatient, because those themes there are impatience in the gate 5 and boredom or whatever in gate 35. So it's just like you could look at all the different gates if you wanted to and see what you might be. It might be easier for you to see some of those shadows in the programming partner to kind of get an understanding of what it is you're doing there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So just a little nugget to, this is why I don't talk about the PHS, the variables, all that stuff. So much is just here in the basic mechanics of this system that if you try to focus too much on all these other things, it just can get very confusing.
Oh.
All right, we'll wrap this up. So you know what that means. What time is it, Haley?
Him. The Incarnation Cross of the week.
If you've never watched this show, you're only listening to it, you're missing out on the gift of seeing Haley sing that little ditty to herself, because she's always got to close her eyes. It's beautiful. It's sweet.
My habit.
This week's Incarnation Cross of the Week, which we're highlighting one Incarnation Cross every week because there's 192, and we're just going to pick one at random and highlight it. This week is the left angle cross of distraction. So this means on the personality side, the right side of your chart, your sun is in gate 56, stimulation. Okay. Earth is in gate 60, acceptance, 60. On the left-hand side of your chart, your sun is in gate 27, the gate of caring. And your Earth is in gate 28, the game player.
I lost all of them. I was not doing good on this one.
Stimulation, acceptance, caring, and the game player.
There it is.
There it is. All right. Okay, so if you were born under the left angle cross of distraction, you have a special talent for drawing people into your world, whether through your stories, experiences, or simply your presence. This ability to capture attention can sometimes have unexpected results, but it also has the power to inspire significant change. Your goal is to help others turn their past challenges into new insights, enabling them to regain control of their lives. By leveraging the power of narrative and storytelling, you assist others in creating an empowered personal story that redefines their lives. You teach the importance of language and the words we choose, showing how they shape our future. Your role is to keep people focused on growth and expansion, guiding them away from old stories of hardship and struggle, and helping them embrace a narrative of empowerment and possibility.
Love it.
Sounds a lot better than distraction, doesn't it?
It does, but I can see where distraction's coming from.
Yeah, definitely. And so, yeah, that's it for this week.
Yeah, easy peasy.
We've given you a lot to think about, people. Go check out your Incarnation Cross. You have any questions? I don't know if I didn't discuss this before, but there is, I believe you can see it on all podcast players. There's a feature now where you can, at the very top of the episode, ask a question.
Oh.
Or let me just double check that real quick. Yes. So I know it's definitely on Apple Podcasts, which is where most people listen to this podcast. It says you have a question. And this, if you do that, it literally comes straight to me. If you have a question or input or anything, I would love to answer your questions. Would love to turn it into a segment if you have questions about things we talked about or in general, or something that you would like to hear more about on the podcast. You can tap into just about any episode and do that and let us know. I'm looking forward to hearing what y'all have to say. And also, don't forget, it's never too late to leave a favorable review or rating on Apple as well to help get our name out there and get more, or let's say not more, but a different approach maybe to human design out there. I always like to see, where do we stand out? It's all information. We have information, but I think we try to make it a little more fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think our personalities are what people like, besides what we're telling.
I would hope. Yeah, a lot of times it's a little serious or heavy or too deep. But
people find us funny.
I think you can be deep while also being lighthearted and friendly. I mean, that's my MO.
Yeah.
I will never take myself too seriously. I can feel myself getting serious and I'm like, oh, let's shake that up a little bit.
No, it's kind of boring to be so serious.
Yeah. Laughter is the best. Yes. Joy and laughter in life for sure. So, okay. Well, you always bring me joy and laughter, and I love you and appreciate you. And for you listening, same goes to you. And we will catch you on the next episode. So bye for now, Haley.
Bye.
You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.